y observo que sobre la superficie superior del ala de la aeronave del avión venía un objeto. Lo estoy viendo aquí cerca.
38 years ago, a pilot had a terrifying encounter with unidentified flying objects during a flight. This distressing experience, which has never been shared, left him shaken. After decades and years of confirmation, he is finally out to share his story. What did he see? Where did this happen? Take a seat and join us as we delve into the unsettling tale of how UFOs targeted this pilot's aircraft. Mexico's most feared encounter, a pilot named Carlos de los Santos, has just shared a spooky tale that's been with him for years. It all went down on May 3rd, 1975, when he was flying back from Zihuatanejo to Mexico City after dropping off some engineers. Young Carlos, then just 23, was all set in his Piper PA-24 plane, flying towards Benito Juarez International Airport. But as he journeyed back, something bizarre went down. About 65 kilometers away from Mexico City, in clear skies and good weather, Carlos found himself spooked. Despite checking his plane before takeoff, he couldn't shake the eerie feeling that came over him during the flight. At 10,000 feet up, cruising through the sky, Carlos suddenly spotted something strange over the VHF radio. It was a chilling moment for the young pilot as he witnessed something out of the ordinary in the distance. He found something wild happening on the wings of his plane, a saucer-shaped thing zooming straight at him. But then it disappeared. Then, just a few seconds later, he got that creepy feeling again, like he was being watched. This time, he spotted another odd object on his left and one more on his right. The second sighting made him even more jittery. Later, he explained that he saw two grayish things, each about 4 meters wide, with a small cabin or cockpit on top and a window he couldn't see through. They were smaller than his plane, but he was too nervous to be certain about anything. Still shaken by what was unfolding, about 4 seconds later, another one of these objects popped up in front of him, seemingly headed straight for Carlos de los Santos. Terrified, Carlos thought it was going to smash into his plane. Desperately, he tried to swerve by pushing the control wheel forward, but to his surprise, something shocking occurred. The control wheel, which had been working just fine moments earlier, wouldn't respond. Though he moved it, the plane remained still. In that instant, he found himself completely powerless over the plane. Thankfully, the third object dodged the propeller and disappeared beneath the cockpit. Then, a deafening crash shook the air. It seemed the object had struck the plane's underside. Unable to grasp what had occurred, he was left clueless about any potential damage, with the aircraft still completely beyond his command. Confused and petrified, Carlos faced 3 strange objects swirling around him, demanding action. So he urgently radioed Mexico City's airport for help, and what follows is the actual recording of his plea, aired for the first time on UK television. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Alpha Uniform. I've lost control. I've lost control of the plane," a trembling Carlos exclaimed. He continued the call, with Carlos saying that 3 UFOs were surrounding his plane. Julio Cesar Diaz, an air traffic controller who was present in the control tower, said that they heard a Mayday emergency call, and the voice was very stressed, almost shouting. Carlos struggled to make sense of what was happening, panicking, constantly looking over his shoulder and wondering if these objects were man-made or extraterrestrial, as he had no idea how to look at them. Not having a clue who his assailants were made it an even more terrifying situation for him. It was as though these strange objects had a plan for him and the plane. Suddenly, Carlos's plane dramatically started to change course. It started ascending without his input, as he still doesn't have control over the plane. It was controlled by an unknown force, flying the plane relentlessly into oblivion. With nothing he could do and no idea where the plane was headed at an unprecedented speed, A very confused Carlos thought, "Who is it? Who is coming? Who are they? What do they want?" As the plane reached 4,500 meters, Carlos was in a very big mess. This would have been a lot for anyone to deal with, not least the young Carlos in his early 20s. He started to think about himself, his parents and family. It was awful, and he was a nervous wreck in a situation he described as a pilot's worst nightmare. Just as he thought all hope was lost and was about to give up on trying to steer the control wheel, these strange objects flew off, and once again, he regained control of his plane after he tried to turn. With a huge sigh of relief, Carlos began to steer the plane, lowering its altitude as he started to approach Mexico City's airport. His nervous feeling never really went away, as he was worried these strange objects could come right back whenever they wanted. So he tried to descend as quickly as possible. While trying to descend, to his utmost shock, he discovered that he's unable to lower the landing gear properly. The cockpit lights indicated that the wheels could not be locked. It seemed that, when the third object had struck the bottom of the fuselage, it may have damaged the plane's landing gear. The 3 green LED lights were flickering, which indicated that the landing gears had been deployed. However, this doesn't mean they were secured. Carlos told the control tower that he feared the landing gear had been damaged and wouldn't support the plane at touchdown. Diaz mentioned how they were very concerned because there is always the risk that if a plane is landed without the landing gear deployed properly, it may cause a spark that would ignite the fuel tank and blow up the plane. This possibility didn't make anyone feel at ease, so the air traffic controllers were forced to take drastic action, with the airport immediately being shut down. A desperate Carlos continued to try. He was instructed to land as best as he could, so he chose the grass strip between the runways, as his only concern at this point was to safely land the plane. A near-crying Carlos did all he could, and finally brought the plane in, racing for a crash while fearing for his life. That would not be the end of the drama. To Carlos's surprise and huge relief, the landing gear worked all right, and he was alive. He immediately opened the door of the plane, and without turning the plane's engine off, he rushed off the plane. He sighed heavily, muttering about how the plane is okay, he is okay, and everything else is also okay. After this incident, Carlos stepped out into a media frenzy after the journalists learned that the airport had been shut down. Carlos's story about the 3 UFOs soon exploded into the news. No one could tell what really happened, so Carlos was immediately taken to the Airport Aviation Services Center for assessment. Carlos was treated at a local clinic, and no substances were found in his system. He was given a clear bill of health and permission to continue flying thereafter. Any doubt that the event occurred was squashed when the radar operators at the control tower that day, Julio Cesar Interian Diaz and Emilio Estañol Lopez, testified that they did indeed view the objects in real time as they were making the maneuvers that Carlos had been reporting. According to UFO researcher Miguel Romero, an affidavit was recorded in the official minutes of the General Directorate of Civil Aeronautics by the Office of Aeronautical Authority for the International Airport of Mexico City on May 8, 1975. The case caught international attention, and soon news outlets wanted to speak to Carlos about what had happened. On several occasions, Carlos was visited by what can only be described as men in black. He was told not to speak of what had happened, or he and his family could suffer consequences. But he was adamant about getting his story out to the public, and even to this day, he continues to speak out about it. Carlos went on to continue flying, having a healthy and safe career thereafter. But presumably, that almost fateful day in 1975 completely changed his outlook on what lay somewhere in the skies over Mexico and just exactly how much control the trio of saucer-shaped crafts seemed to have over his Piper plane. But it turns out that Carlos's terrifying encounter would not be the only one coming from Mexico. The terrifying UFO invasion. On August 12, 1883, astronomer Jose Bonilla spotted more than 300 dark, mysterious objects zooming across the sun while checking out sunspot action at Zacatecas Observatory in Mexico. He snapped a bunch of wet plate photos with a quick 1/100 of a second exposure. Even though it turned out those objects were just high-flying geese, Bonilla gets props for possibly snapping the earliest picture of an unidentified flying object, with some people in UFO circles seeing it as either aliens or an unsolved puzzle. UFO enthusiasts living nearby have also reported a UFO crashing into a small airplane mid-air near Koyam on August 25, 1974. The event was followed by a hush-hush military investigation, but experts argue that such UFO sightings were likely sparked by the 1974 crash and military seizing of a Cessna aircraft caught up in drug smuggling. Then, on Friday, March 5th, Mexican Air Force pilots, using special infrared equipment to track down planes smuggling drugs, spotted 11 strange objects in the skies over southern Campeche. The Mexico Defense Department made a big announcement on May 12th, sharing a video showing bright lights moving at 11,500 feet. Mexican UFO pro Jaime Maussan saw the video as proof of aliens paying a visit, but science writer Michael Shermer wasn't convinced. He said witness stories kept changing and compared it to a story that grows taller each time it's told. Other experts thought the lights were likely just flares burning off on oil platforms in the Gulf of Mexico. In these encounters with UFOs, no one is left out, not even celebrities. Birthday wishes from the Cancun pyramids. Victoria Unikel, a producer and entertainment media magnate, was celebrating her birthday in Cancun, Mexico, and participated in a shaman-led Temazcal ceremony where she was submerged in 3 cenotes and in 3 rivers that are seen as holy places for the Maya people. She had no idea that she would see the UFOs when and where she did, but this being the Chichen Itza Pyramid's holy ruins, she should not have been surprised. She even recorded a video of 2 UFOs flying over the Mayan Chichen Itza pyramids in Mexico. She wasn't aware of this until later that evening, when she was scrolling through her videos. The objects appear to be traveling so fast that they cross the sky in a matter of several frames of video. It just so happened that Victoria and her husband were discussing her knowledge of the Maya that she received while under a channeling trance years ago, which contradicts the accepted wisdom about the origins of the Maya. Going with the 5-meter object size estimate, its speed is 6,717 miles per hour, a speed no man-made object has attained in level flight. For comparison, the fastest manned plane was the X-15 rocket-powered test plane that flew at 4,520 miles per hour, and that was at a very high altitude of over 300,000 feet, where the air resistance is far lower than near sea level. Victoria interpreted this sighting as a sign that she must share the visions she has been keeping private for so many years. Victoria said that many years ago, she had gone under a channeling trance several times over a period of 2 months, during which many amazing revelations were made to her, as if dictated by a faraway voice. She said she always wanted to share what she saw, as it had relevance to mankind's future, but thought that the information was far too explosive to share with the world. So much of what she learned goes against the teachings of the major religions, and the things she learned revealed the missing links in our evolutionary history that she feared revealing. She concluded by saying she might expose some of what she earned soon, a sight that the Mexican Air Force has also confirmed. The military realizes a video that creates chaos. The Mexican Air Force released footage of what appeared to be unidentified flying objects picked up by an infrared camera as they whizzed around a surveillance plane. After analyzing the video, a long-time believer in flying saucers, journalist Jaime Maussan, said in a news conference that the objects were real. He claimed that at one point, the shapes appeared to change direction and surround the plane that was chasing them. Maussan said the shapes showed up in the infrared footage but could not be seen by the naked eye. These objects, although invisible to the naked eye, were there, and he had no doubt about their presence. They also have mass and energy, and they were moving about. He said this after showing a 15-minute video that he said the Defense Ministry gave him permission to publicize. The ministry confirmed to Reuters that it had provided the video filmed by the Air Force on March 5, 2017, over the eastern coastal state of Campeche. The pilot could be heard yelling, "We are not alone!" This is so weird, after the plane's crew switched on an infrared camera to track the objects first picked up by radar. The film, recorded by a plane looking for drug trafficking near the Gulf of Mexico, shows 11 blobs of light that appear to hover in formation or dart about, sometimes disappearing into the clouds. Interviewed by Mawson on another section of the video, the pilot said they grew nervous when the objects, still invisible, turned back during a chase and surrounded the plane. Magdaleno Castanon claimed that there was a moment when the screen showed they were behind them, to the left and in front of them, and it was at that point that he felt a bit tense. UFO spotted near a volcano in Mexico. The white and blurry object was filmed near Popocatépetl volcano, located in central Mexico, before it was uploaded to YouTube. UFO Sightings Daily wrote that the orb itself appeared as though it were a cloud and moved extremely fast. The size is about that of a motorcycle, using birds and buildings as a relative measure for its size. And another UFO was spotted right before another volcano in Mexico erupted. The object was spotted on camera when Volcano de Fuego, Mexico, erupted. The video was uploaded shortly after that. The alleged UFO is seen flying extremely near the volcano. UFO Sightings Daily said to viewers that they have to watch the video very carefully, pausing the video every second, or it's going to be missed. From its length compared to the diameter of the mouth of the volcano, they were able to determine that the UFO is over 100 meters long, which explains the massive explosion and clouds that lasted for hours. There have been a number of UFO sightings near volcanoes, namely in Mexico. A cigar-shaped UFO was also spotted flying into a volcano. A number of conspiracy theories have asserted that alien bases are located miles inside or below the volcano. And in June 2013, another UFO allegedly entered Mexico's Popocatépetl volcano. The Huffington Post had an interview with Mark D'Antonio, the chief photo and video analyst of the Mutual UFO Network, who said he believes that the encounter is not likely fake. The image captured is genuine. Mexico has had numerous UFO reports. How true are these sightings? What the Mexican government have to say? On September 13, 2017, Mexican lawmakers heard testimony that we are not alone in the universe and saw the alleged remains of non-human beings in an extraordinary hearing, marking the Latin American country's first congressional event on UFOs. In the hearing on FANI, the Spanish acronym for what are usually now termed unidentified anomalous phenomena, politicians were shown two artifacts that Mexican journalist and longtime UFO enthusiast Jaime Maussan claimed were the corpses of extraterrestrials. Maussan said that the specimens were not related to any life on Earth and that the two tiny bodies displayed in cases have 3 fingers on each hand and elongated heads. Maussan said they were recovered in Peru near the ancient Nazca lines in 2017. He said that they were about 1,000 years old, analyzed through a carbon dating process by Mexico's National Autonomous University. Similar finds in the past have turned out to be the remains of mummified children. Maussan said it was the first time such evidence had been presented. He went further, saying he thought there was a clear demonstration that they were dealing with non-human specimens that are not related to any other species in our world, and that all possibilities are open for any scientific institution to investigate it, concluding his statement by restating that we are not alone. José de Jesus Zalcha Benitez, director of the Scientific Institute for Health of the Mexican Navy, said X-rays, 3D reconstruction, and DNA analysis had been carried out on the remains, and that he could affirm that the bodies have no relation to human beings. UNAM republished a statement first issued in 2017, saying the work by its National Laboratory of Mass Spectrometry with Accelerators, LIMA, was only intended to determine the age of the samples. Congressman Sergio Gutierrez from President Andrés Manuel López Obrador's ruling Morena party said he hoped the hearing would be the first of other similar events in Mexico, stating how we are left with reflections, with concerns, and with the path to continue talking about this. In recent years, the US government has done an about-face on public information on UAP after decades of stonewalling and deflecting. The Pentagon has been actively investigating reported sightings in recent years by military aviators, while an independent NASA panel studying UFOs is the first of its kind by the space agency. NASA is set to discuss findings from the study on Thursday. Maussan faced swift backlash and criticism from skeptics on Wednesday who questioned the authenticity of his presentation. A Twitter user then lamented how Maussan claims could really hurt efforts to take the issue seriously, reiterating they should have waited for a scientific paper when Mexico went ahead to publish the revelation. These UFO sightings are not limited to Mexico alone. Let's tour the globe and delve into encounters from all over the world. Kenneth Arnold's horrific encounter with a UFO. Accomplished pilot Kenneth Arnold was flying his Call Air A2 near Mount Rainier, Washington, when he spotted disc-shaped objects moving at a tremendous speed. He estimated it to be about 1,932 kilometers per hour. The press quickly dubbed these UFOs flying saucers. We will never know exactly what private pilot Kenneth A. Arnold saw years ago while flying past Mount Rainier on June 24, 1947. What he said he saw, and he spent the rest of his life trying to explain, adding the words flying saucer to the vocabularies of millions of people around the world. That June afternoon, Arnold took off from Chehalis, Washington, on his way to an air show in Pendleton, Oregon, with a planned fuel stop at Yakima, Washington. He was an experienced pilot with 4,000 hours of flying time logged and a member of an Idaho search and rescue unit. He was piloting a single-engine Call Air A2 light airplane. The skies were clear and the winds were light. He planned to detour a bit en route. A U.S. Marine Corps Curtiss C-46 commando transport had crashed with 32 U.S. Marines on board somewhere near his eastward course, and Arnold hoped to find the downed aircraft and claim a $5,000 reward. Shortly before 3 p.m., as Arnold circled his airplane about 20 miles west of Mount Rainier, searching for the C-46, he saw a bright flash to the northeast. He said he was startled by the sudden bright light, and he just assumed it was some military lieutenant out with a shiny P-51, and he had caught the reflection of the sun hitting the wings of his plane. After more flashes appeared, Arnold ruled out a nearby Douglas DC-4 airliner as the source. He claimed they emanated from 9 shiny objects, flying in an echelon formation about 5 miles long. Arnold described each object as circular, about 100 feet across, and with no discernible tail. The objects periodically flipped, banked, and weaved side to side, and it was like the tail of a Chinese kite. The formation was crossing in front of Arnold, and he decided to time its passage from Mount Rainier to Mount Adams. He calculated that the objects were flying at about 1,200 meters per hour. Some accounts reported the speed to be 1,700 meters per hour, 2 times faster than any airplane known at that time. Months would pass before Colonel Chuck Yeager flew the Bell X-1 rocket airplane to a speed of 700 miles per hour and exceeded the speed of sound. Arnold emphatically denied that he initially described the objects as flying saucers. But as Megan Garber wrote in her June 15, 2014 article for The Atlantic, stories of the time credit Arnold with using the terms saucer, disc, and pie pan in his description of the objects he had seen. He told his story to reporters Bill Bequette and Nolan Skiff of the East Oregonian newspaper the day after his sighting. Skiff used the words saucer-like aircraft when he published a short print article that same day. After suggesting to Arnold that a wire story might generate comments from the military on flights of experimental aircraft that could explain Arnold's sighting, Bequette published a brief story picked up by the Associated Press wire service, using the words 9 bright, saucer-like objects to describe what Arnold said he saw. By afternoon, the tale that he had seen flying saucers had spread nationwide. A radio host interviewing Arnold on June 26th noted how rapidly the story was shared. They said the Associated and United Press all over the nation have been after Arnold's story. It's been on every newscast, over the air, and in every newspaper around. The Chicago Sun ran the headline, "Supersonic Flying Saucers Sighted by Idaho Pilot." Arnold became a media sensation, but he did not welcome the attention. Interviewed 30 years later, Arnold said he had, of course, suffered some embarrassment here and there from misquotes and misinformation published in various outlets. Whatever Kenneth Arnold saw remains unexplained, but subsequent reports used the words flying saucer. During the next decades, people around the world labeled many sightings of unexplainable aerial phenomena flying saucers. Now people in ever-increasing numbers are exploring the skies using drones, balloons, dirigibles, helicopters, private airplanes, commercial airliners, military warplanes, and other types of aircraft. We encourage and celebrate this exploration, but we also strongly urge all observers to apply critical thinking when evaluating the true nature of whatever they discover in the skies above us. Thank you for watching. Comment to share what you think in the comment section below. Remember to like and subscribe to see more videos.